When God is silent, the soul begins to ask questions it never dared to speak aloud. You look at your life and wonder, did he forget me? The prayers you whispered in the night feel like they dissolved into the air. The doors you knocked on stayed shut. And the silence? It can feel heavier than any rejection. But what if the silence is not absence? What if what feels like delay is not neglect, but design? What if your name, your tears, your aching longings, are engraved on the very hands that formed you? Can a mother forget the baby at her breast? The Lord asks through Isaiah 49 verses 15 to 16. Though she may forget, I will not forget you. See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. That verse is not poetic comfort. It's a declaration of spiritual reality. To be engraved means you cannot be erased. To be engraved means you are not just remembered, you are carried. Even when the path is dark. Even when no voice comes from heaven. Even when every sign says you've been left behind. Joseph sat in a prison cell, year after year, forgotten by men who had promised to help him. He had done nothing wrong. He had only been faithful. Yet the silence stretched on. What he couldn't see, what we can only understand in hindsight, is that heaven had not overlooked him. Heaven was waiting for the exact moment when Pharaoh would dream. One moment Joseph was in the dungeon. The next, he was standing before a king. Years of silence shattered by a single divine appointment. But before the breakthrough, there was burial. And that's where many hearts are today. Buried in the cold ground of waiting. Wondering if anything is growing beneath. You feel hidden. Cut off. Forgotten. But seeds are not destroyed when they're buried, they are prepared. In the stillness. In the dark. In the depth no one sees. God is not ignoring you. He is forming something in you. Something that cannot grow in the sunlight of instant answers. The silence you're experiencing may feel like divine abandonment, but it's not. It is divine preparation. The same God who buried Jesus in the tomb, in stillness, in silence, is the same God who raised him in glory. And that tomb was not a place of defeat. It was the threshold of resurrection. Right now, it may feel like your prayers go unnoticed. Like your faith has gone unrewarded. But divine delay is not divine denial. It's the soil. It's the slow, sacred place where divine timing takes root. Your breakthrough is not behind schedule, it is being built in silence. So if God feels quiet, don't assume he's absent. If the doors are closed, don't assume they're locked forever. And if your name hasn't been called yet, don't assume it's been erased. In the places no one sees, heaven is moving. In the timeline you can't predict, heaven is aligning. And in the stillness that feels like suffering, heaven is preparing something that could never come early. You are not forgotten. You are engraved. And what's being formed in silence will one day speak louder than all the noise. There's a rhythm to how God works. A quietness. A hiddenness. It defies our desire for clarity, but it is deeply sacred. What you're walking through now, the unanswered questions, the moments that seem painfully still, these are not signs that God has turned his face. They are signs that something is growing beneath the surface. Something holy. Something heavy with glory. I will give you hidden treasures, riches stored in secret places. Isaiah 45 verse 3. This is not just poetic language, it is divine strategy. God often does his most profound work in the dark. Spiritual breakthroughs do not begin in fanfare. They are born in shadows. Jesus didn't step into resurrection from a stage. He stepped out from a tomb. And before that? Silence. Cold stone. Stillness. What looks like spiritual inactivity is often sacred protection. God hides His work not to delay it, but to mature it. He keeps it covered so no one tramples what's still tender. So you won't walk into what you prayed for until your roots can carry the weight. What feels like being overlooked is often God shielding you from exposure that would crush you. There is a space between the promise and its fulfillment that feels endless. But it's not emptiness, it's process. Abraham was promised a son, but years passed. His body aged. His hope dimmed. And yet, at the very time God had promised, Isaac was born. The in-between was never outside of God's timing. It was where Abraham was shaped into a man who could receive what he'd been promised. The in-between seasons, the ones we try to rush through, are where God forms us in ways that blessings never could. They are not evidence that you've lost God's favor. They're invitations to know His heart. To trust Him without guarantees. To cling when there's nothing else to hold on to. These are the moments that strip away performance and force you to meet God not as a provider of outcomes, but as the presence who stays in the silence. You may feel like no one sees you. Like heaven has gone quiet while life keeps moving for everyone else. But Esther too was hidden before she was positioned. She spent years in preparation before she ever stepped into purpose. Her story didn't begin in the throne room, it began behind closed doors. The season you're in now may feel invisible, but it's not insignificant. God's work in hidden places is never wasted. You see, heaven's timeline is never in a hurry, but it's never off course. The moments that feel like delay are often where the roots are growing deepest. Where the foundation is being laid, not for a moment, but for a movement in your life. If you feel hidden, it may be because He's setting you apart. If you feel overlooked, it may be because He's still building what can't be rushed. God hides before He reveals. That's not a punishment, it's a pattern. A holy one. Don't despise the silence. Don't curse the darkness. The treasure you long for may be buried, but it's there. And when the time is right, when your heart is ready and the season is ripe, it will come into the light. Not a second too soon. Not a moment too late. What if the delay isn't withholding, but preparation? What if the very thing you've been pleading for is so weighty, so sacred, that God, in His mercy, is making sure your soul is strong enough to carry it? There's a reason some answers don't arrive on our timetable. James writes, "Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." That word, finish, it's slow. It implies staying. Letting the fire shape you. Letting the silence speak. God isn't interested in quick fixes. He's interested in forming you to carry something eternal. Because some blessings break people when they come too soon. That marriage. That ministry. That open door. If it comes before your spirit is anchored, it can crush more than it carries. And so God waits. He teaches you to breathe deep in the wilderness before placing you before kings. He lets you walk through disappointment so your character won't collapse under success. And it's not cruel. It's love. Because breakthroughs are not just for your relief, they're for His glory. God doesn't just want to deliver you from a situation. He wants to transform you within it. He's not just shifting what's around you, he's reshaping what's inside you. Moses had a calling long before he had the character to carry it. He was raised in Pharaoh's palace, shaped by Egypt's culture. But before he could lead a people into freedom, he had to be led into obscurity. Into the desert. Into the quiet. He had to unlearn the ways of the world so he could hear the voice of God. 40 years passed in silence before the burning bush appeared. And yet none of those years were wasted. They were sacred. Formational. Crucial. You may feel like you've been put on pause. Like your calling is slipping through your fingers. But what if this is the very ground where endurance is being built? Where God is forming in you the spiritual muscles to hold what you once could only dream of. Look at Jesus. Before he performed a single miracle, he was led into the wilderness. 40 days. No crowds. No signs. Just hunger, stillness, temptation, and trust. The Son of God, hidden in the wild. Why? Because spiritual authority is not given cheaply. It's formed in fire. It's forged in solitude. And Jesus came out of that desert not just as a man with power, but as a man fully aligned with the will of the Father. The wilderness is not punishment. It's preparation. It's the place where idols die and intimacy grows. Where you stop needing immediate results to trust that God is good. Where your faith becomes less about answers, and more about presence. So if your heart aches in the waiting, if your prayers feel unanswered, don't assume God is distant. He's training you. He's stripping what cannot last to build what cannot fail. He's preparing you to carry what you prayed for, not just for a moment, but with integrity, depth, and power that will endure. Don't rush this. Don't resent this. Let it do its work. Because when the breakthrough comes, it won't just change your circumstances, it will reflect the glory of the one who formed you in the quiet. There's a deep ache that comes from waiting without understanding. When days turn to months, and prayers echo back in silence, the soul begins to wonder, did God forget? Did I miss something? But divine timing is never careless. Never chaotic. God is not slow. He is deliberate. He makes everything beautiful in its time, says Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11. That verse doesn't say fast or immediate. It says beautiful. Beauty takes time. A seed doesn't bloom the day it's planted. It pushes through soil. It fights darkness. It stays hidden. But when it breaks through, it's radiant. God's timeline moves beneath the surface long before anything is visible. And when he says, now, it will not be late. We often think breakthrough is instant. That one day, suddenly, everything will shift. And it's true, God moves suddenly. But suddenly is not the same as instantly. What looks like a sudden answer is often the final hour of a much longer work. It's the fruit of perseverance. The result of spiritual formation. And sometimes, God delays not because he's withholding, but because he's protecting. Without waiting, we risk turning the blessing into an idol. When you've never had to hunger, you don't value bread. When you've never had to trust, you don't cling to the giver, just the gift. And God, in his mercy, delays what you want until your soul is ready to handle it with humility and reverence. He sees what's ahead. The dangers. The pressures. The spiritual weight. And so he waits until your foundation is deep enough to hold what's coming. The wait doesn't mean you're forgotten. It means you're being anchored. And anchors aren't beautiful, but they're what keep you from drifting when the waters rise. This is how God loves. Not through shortcuts, but through sanctification. Not through fast answers, but through lasting transformation. He's not interested in a quick fix for your pain. He's interested in building a life in you that can weather every storm. So don't misread the delay. Don't assume silence means absence. Every not yet carries a holy reason. Every moment of stillness is another layer being added to your foundation. Every day of waiting is another thread in a tapestry you cannot yet see. One day, it will make sense. One day, the threads will come together. And when the breakthrough comes, it won't feel random. It will feel right. Holy. Timed by a hand that never lost sight of you. Because God's timing is not just about arrival. It's about alignment. And when your spirit is ready, when your heart is steady, when your trust runs deeper than your need for control, He will move. And it will be beautiful. Sometimes, the silence feels unbearable. It echoes louder than any voice, filling every space with uncertainty. You pray, and nothing shifts. You obey, and the outcome still delays. You wonder if your tears have disappeared into the void. But they haven't. They've been gathered. Counted. Watering ground you cannot yet see. And one day, that ground will break open and bloom. All things work together for good. That's what Romans 8 verse 28 tells us. Not just the joyful things. Not just the moments that make sense. All things. Even the waiting. Even the silence. Even the nights when you whispered, "God, where are you?" God never wastes what you walk through. He never abandons what He began. His silence isn't indifference, it's focused creation. Like a sculptor chiseling in stillness, He's shaping something sacred in you. And when the noise of the world quiets, when the distractions fade, that's when the deepest work begins. You may not see progress. You may not feel movement. But faith isn't about seeing, it's about trusting. Trusting that your name has never left His hands. That He's not pacing the heavens in confusion. He's not rewriting your story in fear. He's aligning every detail in perfect love and perfect timing. Don't rush what God is refining. Don't curse the quiet. Don't confuse hiddenness with neglect. Some of God's greatest miracles begin underground, in places no one sees, in seasons no one understands. But He sees. And He understands. And He is not done. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are not cast aside. You are being prepared. And when the time comes, when the fullness of God's purpose has matured in the secret place, the breakthrough will come. Not just to rescue you from pain, but to reveal His glory through your life. Your breakthrough is already written. Already seen. Already spoken. Just not yet revealed. So hold on. The silence is sacred. The sculptor is still working. And the masterpiece is almost ready.